And welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 500,000 subscribers. So please subscribe, comment, keep the comments coming, share with family and friends. Why? Because the insanity, the ridiculousness, it doesn't stop. Now, every single day, every day, more and more information is coming out about the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites. And yesterday, both CNN and the New York Times, they reported that a preliminary report said that the bombing, and again, this is CNN and the New York Times, claim that the bombing was not as devastating as Trump and his acolytes are claiming. The blast did, however, seal off two entrances to two of the facilities, but it did not collapse everything, meaning that Iran was only set back a few months. A newest report is saying it could even be up to 2 years. Now, the report also suggests that Iran was able to move a lot of their stockpile of the enriched uranium before the attack even took place. Now, as you may have seen in my earlier video, Trump is really pissed. He's pissed about the report, and he's still trying to convince the world that the Iranian nuclear sites are completely and totally obliterated. Now, yesterday on Political Beatdown, my co-host Ben Meiselas and I, we broke down the nuances of the leaked information and how to know what is actually correct, what is true coming out of this administration. And I want to make a point about how world leaders should actually take a lesson from the way Ben and I debate over this issue. You see, we don't necessarily agree on the route to get to where we may both agree on the end, on the ultimate destination, but the route, I think we have differences of opinion. And that's okay. We just have differences of opinion. Does that make me right? No. Does it make Ben right? No, it doesn't. You know what will ultimately determine who is exactly right? Time. And that's why these debates are important. We may both agree on the same thing, but again, getting there, well, we have a little bit of a different route. Play the clip.
Donald Trump was lying when he said that he completely obliterated Iran's nuclear program and obliterated all of the nuclear sites. The damage assessment that was first leaked to CNN and then confirmed by the New York Times says quite the contrary, that some of the facilities in Iran were damaged, but certainly not destroyed. And then there's other reporting that Iran was able to bring about 880 pounds of the uranium and transfer it outside of the facilities, bring in a bunch of trucks and move it, because Donald Trump was making social media posts and talking about it with the Juventus football club and with the construction workers behind him. So Donald Trump kind of tipped them off about what was ultimately going to happen. You started to see signs, Cohen, with MAGA Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and other people doing the Sunday shows and today, where they were saying, no, that was never our objective to actually denuclearize. We set them back, and that's what we wanted to do. And now, of course, in typical fashion, you've got the kind of Trump regime chief propagandist, Caroline Leavitt. She puts out a statement saying that this alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. So what was it? How could it be a classified top secret assessment? But then
have a low-level loser out there leaking it, of course. By the way, I do have to say, for taking Trump out of the equation, it does bother me that you have all of these leaks. It bothered me when the leaks affected Barack Obama. It bothered me when they affected Trump the first time. It bothered me when they affected Joe Biden. And it bothers me again. One thing that, regardless of whether you agree with the guy's position today or not, those people that work in that specific organization for that specific president should really keep this information in-house. They shouldn't be, and if they are the ones that are going to be leaking it, I think it is really incumbent upon the news sources to actually not allow them to do it anonymously. Because here's the problem, Ben.
I'm gonna put it out there just so the audience knows. I'm about to strongly disagree with you, but go ahead.
Okay, which is fine. But I don't like the leaks coming on any side. What I would prefer would be the truth from that group. The leaks, the problem is you now don't know whether or not that individual is telling the truth or isn't telling the truth. You don't know whether or not that individual is somebody that has an axe to grind or not. I would prefer the president. I would prefer the press secretary. I would prefer Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, or Pete Hegseth telling us the truth on what really happened. Because all it does is it fuels conspiracy theories.
I would prefer a lot of things. I'd prefer that I didn't have a herniated disc right now and I could sit on a chair. I'd prefer that I could eat chocolate all day and not gain weight from it and eat Haagen-Dazs chocolate chip. But a lot of my preferences are not reality. The Trump regime lies about everything, Cohen. The reason this was leaked is because the Trump regime canceled the classified intelligence briefing that was supposed to take place on a bipartisan basis with the House and the Senate today. The fact is that one side is lying and it's not the leaker. The side that's lying, and it's almost always the case, is Donald Trump. So at some point, I actually applaud the leak because it actually seems that it was done in response to waiting to see if the president would do what presidents normally do. And here's what presidents normally do. They usually tell the truth or close to the truth based on what they're able to share, given, of course, that some information is classified. But when Donald Trump addresses the American people, flanked by Hegseth and Rubio and Vance, and gives a weird 4-minute speech, God, I want to thank you, God. It was like he winning an award. Thank you, God. God bless everybody. And then when he starts to lie and say that these facilities were completely obliterated and that's going to put our troops at risk, that's going to put lives at risk. At some point, to me, there is I don't encourage people as a first step go out and leak everything when you have classified information. People who are dutifully working in our intelligence services should not just go out and willy-nilly randomly start, oh, I learned this today, let me leak it. But at some point, Cohen, our lives.
See, the problem is like a lot of our followers, the brigaders, like, oh, well, you're wrong, Michael, because the leaks are the only way that we get the truth. And the question that I would pose to you: how do you know that that's the truth? How do you know that that one specific item, maybe some other leak may be factually accurate, but this one is inaccurate? Don't we, as the population, as the citizenry of this country, have an absolute right to know what's going on? Because it does affect us. It affects our national security. It affects, the way that that we're supposed to think about our politicians, about our government. How do we know that the leaks are accurate? We don't. Well, we don't. We don't know, because I'm going to tell you why. The IAEA, they have not been out to the site to confirm anything. In fact, Iran even went so far as to now refuse to allow the independent agency to come in and to evaluate the situation. So immediately people start jumping to a conclusion that they have something to hide. It's probably a very fair assessment, but it doesn't mean it's factually accurate. I just want to know. I want to know where we stand in terms of whether or not this move by Trump was right, this move was wrong. If it was wrong, we need to understand why, and we need to understand why Congress so far has done absolutely nothing within which to hold accountability. That's my only issue.
Let's go through those questions. First, in deriving at an objective truth, do you believe that Trump, Rubio, Vance, Hegseth will ever give us, we the people or Congress, accurate information?
I believe that we would get accurate information, especially if it was successful and it was verifiably successful. Yes, then I believe that they would come and say, we completely annihilated the entire Iranian nuclear program. And if you don't believe me, we have the IEA, the IEAA, whatever it is, going in there within which to evaluate. On top of that, you have independent outlets that are going in to validate it. We don't get that. And I am not defending MAGA. I am defending us. I want to know the truth, not the truth as by Ben, not the truth as by people who, have righteous beliefs in terms of historically looking at things. This is nuclear. This goes way beyond, whether or not, there's some small semblance of issue that we need to look at. This is nuclear. This is not a joke. And I believe, as Americans, I believe that as citizens, we have every right to know exactly what took place here.
Of course, we have every right to know. So we'll start off with, I agree with you there. What I don't fully understand your answer is somehow getting accurate information from the Trump regime who lies about everything. You are a witness at a case where the guy commits fraud all of the time about, like, how do you know Trump is lying? He's usually opening up his mouth. And you said, how would we know? We would know if they claim total annihilation. Well, they claimed that, and it seems to be false. To answer your other question, how do we know the truth? That's like a very existential question. How do we know that? How do I know that I'm really alive? How do I know this? How do I know that? At some point, we have to get a lot of data points. So in order to determine an objective truth, we have to think of ourselves, or we have to think about things the way we would think about, like, a jury. How does the jury know if someone's guilty or not guilty? Could someone who's guilty be tricking the jury into making them think not guilty? Sure. Could someone who's not guilty be found guilty by a jury? Sure. But we, the people in the United States of America and around the world, we should have a lot of data points. So one data point is Trump. He's a liar. He lies about everything. He says total obliteration. He says there's a ceasefire when there really wasn't a ceasefire. And now you have Israel military and Iranian military basically saying that things could potentially be ratcheted up soon. So you've got Trump pretty much, you have Trump who holds press conferences and claims that there's a white genocide in South Africa in front of the South African president Ramaphosa. So I could give you 100 examples. And Donald Trump, he lies about, everything. So that's one data point. The other data point.
Can I give you a point that actually confirms what you're saying? Because Defense Intel Agency assesses that the U.S. strikes did not destroy Iran's nuclear program. I now have a very serious problem. Like, I would like to have seen it destroyed. The point I said to you, if you go back and you listen to what I had said, is what we were supposed to hope for is that what Trump was saying was actually correct and true. How we would know that it would be correct and true is because you would have the IAEA going in there. You would have the Defense Intel Agency going in there. You would have Israel going in there. You would have others going in there and making the claim that it was fully destroyed. But we don't have that. And the point I'm trying to make, as I wrote in my Substack, Ben, we're supposed to rely upon these individuals to tell us the truth. We have every right to believe that our leaders are telling us the truth. Unfortunately, they're not. And that is a real problem. That was the point that I'm trying to make, that, not every single thing that Donald Trump says is a lie. Much of what he says is completely inaccurate. It is bent in order to sway to his specific direction. But not every single thing is a lie. If this is a lie, this is even more problematic than what people think, because we now are engaged in an issue that did not have the support of Congress, even though it's supposed to. We are now engaged in an issue that is problematic to America, that there could be significant repercussions. And we have a divided country where there's a group of individuals who actually believe that everything that Trump says is actually accurate, when now, for example, we know that it's not. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And look, we here at the Midas Touch Network, we have a platform that exceeds 5 million subscribers to YouTube and approaching 1 million subscribers on the Midas Substack. So look, what I want to get at, though, I don't really care about it. If someone's trolling in a chat room, that doesn't bother me. We have a huge platform here. So going back to your thesis, Cohen, we have to derive at the truth. So I have to extract evidence that informs my opinion. So I don't just start saying, oh, these facilities were definitely not obliterated. I have to be informed, right? So one piece of data that I give you is Trump saying obliteration and knowing Trump lies. So I view that skeptically. Then I see that there is a leak from the Department of Defense, a damage assessment that was classified. And I view that as a data point. Cohen, your thinking, I think, is fair. Just because there's a leak doesn't make the leak true. It's persuasive to me that it's classified and that the Trump regime admits that it's a classified thing and it was the damage assessment. And then they use an ad hominem attack saying low-level loser.
Hey, everyone. First of all, thanks for watching. We're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.